right. Here we are again on a Wednesday. Ooh, 12:01. I made it just in time. So I hope you can hear me okay. Anyway, today we are going to talk about why sometimes if you're the person being bullied, why you get caught up in documented report, that kind of cycle of acting or interacting or engaging in your workplace where there's bullying. It becomes kind of a cycle of document and report, or sometimes you don't do anything at all, right? You just go in and you try to survive it, and you're just really trying to make it through another day. And so one of the things that happens when you're being bullied is you focus on trying to get it to stop, which of course anybody in their right mind who's being bullied wants it to stop. No kidding, Jan, right? I wanted it to stop, and I spent the majority of my time when I was in bully culture trying to get it to stop, right? I documented and I did a lot of reporting because I tended to report everything or pass along everything that was happening. Now, I'm not saying that was a mistake. I'm just saying that in hindsight and in retrospect, I could have done things differently. But my focus was always on getting it to stop, which is always probably going to be your focus. Is ultimately what we want is for that bully to be held accountable. But because, if you've been listening to me and you know my work, is that oftentimes one of those things that happens is that nobody intervenes, nobody does anything to help protect you or keep you safe, and you end up in kind of a circular situation where you're reporting what they're doing, hoping somebody's going to step in, and nothing ever changes. Well, let me rephrase that. There's lots of things that impact you. Your health might decline, your self-confidence goes down, your mental health takes quite a few knocks. And so the cost of continuing in that cycle of trying to have your end goal be getting it to stop, and that's all that's being done. This problem and the problem I have with it is that oftentimes what happens is who you are gets its ass whooped, so to speak, for lack of a better term. Not a better way to say that. It's just painful, and it impacts you. What I'm going to suggest to you today is something a little bit different. Because one of the things I've been doing, of course, you know that I work with people who are bullied, and I've talked to a lot of people who are bullied, and there seems to be, now you can let me know in the comments if this is true or not, or if it's just my over imagination, is there some resistance oftentimes from people who are being bullied to do anything other than report it. Right? Because you think that that's going to stop it, but you know it's not, because you've done it so many times and it's actually made it worse. So you can walk and chew gum at the same time. That's what my dad would say. And so, because again, sometimes when we engage or we react, is the term I like to use, it doesn't help us. It makes it worse. Okay, because one of the things that we don't tend to think about when we're being bullied is we don't tend to think about what can I do to protect myself. Again, because your focus is always on the end point of getting the bullying to stop. So what I'm going to suggest to you today is to do something different and focus on yourself and what you can do to control yourself, because you never could control the bully and you can't control the bystanders. You can't control HR. You can't control your supervisor. You can only, in the workplace, you only have one person that you can control, and that's yourself. And the other reason that I know that it's better for you to let go of somebody coming in to stop it, because the likelihood of that is happening is pretty slim, but you can control how you respond. And at the same time, you can always keep working on trying to get it to stop. Those are not mutually exclusive. But if you look at what most people are saying, and of course, because you know that's the kind of nerd I am, I've done it. I've done the work for you. I know what's out there. It's document and report. I've went to some of the major professional associations. Most of them have nothing about bullying, and if they do, they use the old song and dance. Document, report, we have zero tolerance, right? All things that end up hurting the person who's being bullied, and it does nothing to protect you from the bullying. And so you can't count on people to come in and stop it, but you can, right? You can count on yourself to do something different. Okay? Again, I'm not saying that you have to change who you are. I'm just saying to you that it isn't enough to document and report, because that doesn't work. You have to do additional things in response to the bullying to protect yourself. Now, that's why do people who are bullied, why do you have such a hard time with that? You know, I've thought about that a lot. There's a lot of resistance on your part to taking steps that would actually work. And I think it's because, and of course I reflected on my own experiences, is that the only thing I wanted was the bullying to stop. I had all my energy focused on that. But the only thing that did for me was suck out my energy and leave me, frazzled and hurt. It didn't benefit me. When I started later trying to respond in ways that were more effective, I didn't stop the bullying, but I felt much better going to work because I felt like I had a little power. And I also felt better about myself because I was protecting myself from additional piling on of bullying. Okay? And so I think that's a hard pill to swallow, because I always, when I'm talking to you about bullying, I always try to put myself back in my old shoes of when I was bullied. And how would I have reacted or responded if somebody had said to me, I think I can help you make things better at your workplace. Now, we're probably not going to get it to stop, but we can reduce some of the bullying and you can take back some of your power and build back your confidence. I don't know. I don't know what I would have done. That's not true. I know myself. Okay. I probably would have said, I'm not interested, because I didn't see myself as the problem. I only looked at everybody else as the problem. Now, again, was I the problem when it comes to bullying? The answer is no. And there's a H-E-double-L, no. Hell, no, I wasn't. Right? Everybody else was, abusing and piling on. But, again, I wasn't the problem. There's nothing you could do to deserve to be bullied. I don't care. Right? I don't care what you've done in the workplace. First off, anybody who's in a workplace has done something that probably has torqued off somebody else. I'm sorry, that's part of work. That's the nature of work, that you're going to irritate somebody. And secondly is nobody's authentic self, right? Your authentic self, when they call you a target, they're coming after your authentic self because they say that there's something about you that's irritating and people don't like. Okay, well, how irritating do you have to be? What characteristics do you have to deserve what's happening to you? I can't think of one thing. Okay, I can't think of one thing. And you know what else I can say? If we're looking at people who are annoying in the workplace, Bob is super annoying, right? When you're a bully, you're a real pain in people's backside. So when we look at it on the scale of, oh, you did something to deserve that, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. You're being bullied because you've got a bully in your workplace. So you didn't cause the problem. But, okay, and this is where, again, you don't deserve to be bullied, but you should learn how to respond in ways that are more effective to protect yourself and to rebuild some of your confidence. Because when you find out that you can control your emotions and how you react to Bob, and Bob is trying to trigger you like there's no tomorrow, and you say, oh, I don't think so. I know that gaslighting game, and what you're saying about me is lies, and I'm not buying into it, and I'm going to do A, B, and C instead. You find that you have more power in the workplace than you thought, okay? But, all right, here's the but, and another but, and you know when anybody says but, that's a bad sign. I've also been talking to a lot of people, in fact, that don't know if what's happening to them is really bullying. Okay, so if you're still in this cycle of thinking, is this conflict? Is it toxicity? If you don't have a confirmed answer, then we cycle into this system where we don't have an answer because there's no policy for bullying. So you don't have anything where you can say, I meet this criteria, I meet this criteria, I meet that criteria. If you don't have a definitive answer, you're always in the waiting room, waiting for somebody to come in and give you that piece of paper that says, yes, you're being bullied. So to make your life better, you have to get that question answered. And secondly, you have to stop thinking somebody's coming in to save you, and you don't need somebody to come in to save you. Yes, it would be nice if somebody stopped that, but you have the power within yourself to respond differently to the workplace bully and take more power back beyond documenting and reporting. Okay, so you can do those things, document and report, and also learn how to respond in ways that are more effective. All right? But you're just probably like, oh, that takes a lot of time. No, it doesn't. It does not take a ton of time to learn little tricks of the trade in how to respond. Okay? One thing you can do, again, let me rewind just a little bit. You have to know how your bully is bullying you, okay? And you have to know how they're coming after you and how you're responding, right? But if you don't know when you're most vulnerable for bullying, that's a problem, right? If you don't know where your vulnerable points are in your office, then you can't develop a plan of action to respond if you don't know where the most problematic times are, okay? For me, it was basically when we had faculty meetings, total shit shows, and I was cyberbullied, okay? And so anytime those things were happening, I was at risk of bullying, of more bullying, okay? And again, if you want to learn more about my experiences, go listen to the podcast, Exposing Workplace Bullying, because I do share some personal, some of the more problematic bullying, okay? So you have to know those things. So let's say, again, for example, I want to give you an example of something simple that you could do tomorrow, today, and have a response back to your bully that is going to help you versus increasing or making yourself more vulnerable. Okay? Hold on one second. Okay. I'm going to need you to immediately. Sorry. I have a cat who is like totally on top of my chair, and I have my stuff over there. So, yes, I can be a control freak. Okay, so let's say, for example, you have Bob. Bob is when you come out of your office, Bob follows you to the break room, right? Which again is not only grotesque, it's creepy and it's wrong. But let's just say that's one of your vulnerable points is when you're trying to go just get a cup of coffee, okay? You could try two things, right? If you have somebody you can trust, go get coffee with them and try not to be alone in the hallway where Bob is ever, okay? Now that can be a little bit more tricky, especially if Bob is your boss, okay? The other thing you can do is don't get coffee in the break room, right? Bring your own coffee in if you can, in a thermos or something like that. Now let's say that in that same scenario, Bob might, as you're walking down the hallway, Bob will nitpick you apart, right? And I think I mentioned this last time, which like not responding and silence can be a very effective tool, okay? So you can just let Bob go, or you can use a microscript. You know I love microscripts, right? Little short ways to respond that you can easily integrate into everyday conversation as a means to respond to Bob, but not say a damn thing, right? So let's say you're in the hallway, or let's say you're in a meeting. Let's use that example. Let's say you're in a meeting and Bob is attacking you, telling you that your work blows and you suck, okay? First off, that's jarring, but if you know that meetings are tough times, you can do two things. Prepare for the meetings and make sure you come with good responses to take Bob out. So you can prepare yourself mentally. And is that important? You're damn right it is. Because first off, you matter in that workplace, whether Bob acknowledges it or not. But preparing yourself helps you to stay grounded. It helps you to stay on high alert, to be ready for things, okay? So, and then let's say Bob, is always nitpicking your work. Bob doesn't want to give you, let you have a word in edgewise. So when you try to say, well, Bob, that's not exactly what happened, okay? He just keeps interrupting you, right? Again, what you can do is let him keep going, right? And when things don't get done, you can go back and say, well, Bob was talking about XYZ for 45 minutes. But when Bob comes at you, instead of saying, Bob, I don't like that. Don't say those things. That's unprofessional. Okay? Because those kinds of comments back will trigger Bob to keep bullying you. Okay? Not that what you're saying is wrong. It's just that when you confront Bob in that way, it's not effective. So something you could say when Bob keeps, rapid firing insults is just to sit there and say, okay, interesting, right? Short microscripts. Because you're responding like a good professional should, but you're not saying anything Bob can use later. And that's the point of strategy, is to protect yourself from additional abuse and also to stay professional. So it's super, super important to answer this question, am I being bullied at work? And then yes, when you get the answer, because you probably already know, but you still might be questioning yourself, learn how to then develop strategies that actually work. And if you're interested, of course, I do coaching. And I'm more than happy to work with you wherever you are at, okay? Whatever your goal is, that's what we work on. I don't say to you, well, you have to leave or you have to, document. I don't do any of that because it's not me in your shoes. You're in control. But what I recently created and released on my shop is a course around bullying, okay, where you can look at and understand bullying not as an interpersonal conflict issue, but as a systematic problem in your organization, which will have you answer this question using an assessment tool. Am I being bullied at work? And secondly, you learn how to understand why why reporting doesn't work, and then also what else you can do on top of documenting and reporting. And I will put that link in the description. I highly recommend that you get that course. It's a self-paced course. You purchase it online and you do it online. And there's exercises and tools for reflection to get you to think about your own personal situation. Because if you don't have that question answered directly and you're still thinking maybe it's just conflict, then you're not able to address the problem in a way it needs to be addressed. And the sooner you address it, the sooner you answer the question, the better and more better chance you have of protecting yourself and keeping you safe. And that's my goal. My goal is twofold. One, to stop bullying, period, but also to protect as many people who are just like me from bullying as possible, because I know that many of you can't leave your jobs. I didn't leave my job. I stayed there, and why did I stay there? Well, it's a lot. It's complicated. It's complicated. And I won't get into that today, but it's complicated. It's complicated why people stay. But what you don't deserve is you don't deserve to be bullied. And secondly, you deserve to take as much action to protect yourself as you possibly can, because you're valuable and you are worth it. So again, if you're not listening to the podcast, I highly recommend that you go listen to Exposing Workplace Bullying. It's very interesting, and I'd love to have your feedback on that. But also, go today and get the class, Am I Being Bullied at Work?, so that you have that answer to your question if you are being bullied, and then you can take action to start protecting yourself. All right, well, that is it for today. I hope you're doing well, and I will see you here next week. Thank you.